Hi, everybody. My name is Devin. I work at the Worcester Public Library, and today I have with me Dr. Joseph Cardillo. Dr. Cardillo is an expert in attention training and creative thinking. He's taught his methods to over 20,000 students at various institutions and is an energy management expert for Football Hall of Famer Michael Strahan in his new book, Wake Up Happy. Dr. Cardillo's books focus on holistic healthcare, mind, body, spirit, and psychology. His work has appeared in mainstream media outlets, and he contributes to Psychology Today and Live Happy magazine. He's written 7 books, and on September 19th at 11 a.m., he's doing a virtual program for us at the Worcester Public Library. And during that program, he'll discuss his newest title, The 12 Rules of Attention, How to Avoid Screw-Ups, Free Up Headspace, Do More, and Be More at Work or Any Place You Are. Thanks so much for joining me today, Dr. Cardillo.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for our viewers, I was wondering if you could explain what it means that you are a body energy expert.
Well, for all of my books, and this is where I really began, I started to, I was particularly in athletics that puts us into a state of flow, a state where, we just feel like we can't do anything wrong and we feel great and we're focused and we're concentrated and everything is working out. And when we're done, we usually feel pretty good about ourselves, our energy. We feel pumped up rather than pumped down. And so I wondered why it was that we couldn't transfer that state of mind throughout the day and really throughout our lives. And so, I began my work, with the first book that I wrote, Be Like Water, and trying to explore that mindset, that flowing mindset, and finding ways that it could be transferred into other things that we do, how wonderful it would be to live that way.
Well, that's very interesting. I imagine, based on what you've said now and looking at some of your books, that you practiced mindfulness on a regular basis. But I was curious about meditation. How often do you meditate, and how do you make sure that there's time for it in your busy schedule?
Well, what I discovered was that, and I started very young. I'm just going to throw this out there because it's kind of a fun little detail. I started out when I was about 14 years old,
Wow.
and I was studying martial arts because my parents thought it was a good way to discipline me. and there was a university not far from where I lived, and shortly after I got involved with martial arts and that whole thing, as a very young man, not as an academic, nothing too intelligent, but I was attracted to a meditation chapel that they had at the university. And so I went there and tried to learn about this thing that was associated with an athletic that I liked so much. And so I got involved in meditation as a very young person in a very non-academic, non-anything really kind of way. But that made me get an appetite for this thing called meditation. And I've discovered over many decades that there's all kinds of meditations. And, mindfulness is about energy and the energy that we can bring into the present moment. So mindfulness allows us to crank the energy up and down in the present moment, depending on which way you need to go. So it's the energy factor. And I'm going to talk a lot about that when we meet online.
Excellent.
But meditation is about space and where you're putting your consciousness, where you're putting your awareness, and so on. And I'm going to talk about that as well. And over the years, I've discovered that, as many other people have discovered as well, that once you become familiar with that space, you can get yourself into it very quickly. So it's important to get familiar with that space, but you also realize that you can do a meditation in just a few minutes, a couple of minutes, because once you know how to get into the space that you need for a particular task or goal, you can go there really quickly, cultivate the energy that you need for that task, and and be nice and fresh and present for that task. Other times you may want to meditate for an hour.
Wow. All right. Sounds like you'll have a lot on that topic for us on Saturday. My other question was, did your mindfulness or meditation practices change in response to the virus?
Yes, I found that I needed to practice both of those skills more often, because it's just too easy. There were so many new predicaments that we're in, and they're not all bad. I mean, the virus is bad, but some of the predicaments that came out of it, were offered us ways to change ourselves that I found to be kind of pleasing, particularly at home with my children and family. And so I found that I had to practice more, and more often. And sometimes I wanted to go a little deeper as well, as I discovered some new things.
Yeah, that makes sense. So one thing I read about you is that one of your goals is to eliminate anxiety, stress, insomnia, and PTSD. So, there's a variety of people who might experience those things. And I was wondering if you saw any difference between men and women or between adults and children and how they approach these treatments for these different kinds of ailments.
I don't. I think that there's a slight difference, but what I found out is that the tools are the same. So, we use things like meditation, mindfulness, we use visualization big time, reflection big time. And I found that the things that make those tools work, we're all wired with these things. So our network is the same, our tools are the same, but the experiences that we draw from are going to be a little different. So, for example, when my youngest daughter was learning to meditate at a very young age, at 3 years old, when she was learning how to meditate. I mean, it's not going to be the same way that I learned when I was 14, but the tools are the tools are still the same. And the coordinates upstairs are still the same that are making those tools work. And so there's a personal imprint on it that's connected to our experiences and our place in life, but also it's good to know that everybody who has a healthy brain, and we all do, can do this.
Oh, that's good. So this is a little bit of a question that I personally wanted to ask. I read that one of your favorite people or role models is Joseph Campbell, and that really surprised me. So I was wondering if you could explain a little about that.
Oh, I love Joseph Campbell. I love Joseph Campbell. And I think I was attracted to his book, The Power of Myth. And what I really liked about Joseph Campbell, besides everything, is that, I really like that phrase of his that became iconic, follow your bliss. And what I found out about that was, bliss is energy. And so, of course I would like it. But over the years, that word bliss has meant different things to me. So maybe at first it meant, follow your dreams or follow your happiness. And then later on, it started to mean more, the more you follow your bliss, kind of like the more you use things like meditation and mindfulness, or even kind of like how we know people, we know each other. Things start to mean more. And then I started to connect that idea of bliss really into almost like a pantheistic kind of perspective. My bliss was connected to my environment, and it's connected to me. And that opened up all kinds of new doors, particularly to energy studies.
Wow, that's really interesting. So what inspired you to write your new book, The 12 Rules of Attention?
Well, a few things. One of the first thing that drew my attention to it was workplace error. And, you know, this country experiences somewhere around $650 billion loss a year because of workplace error and just distraction at the workplace. So my interest was in that. You know, what could I draw from some of the work I've been doing over the decades on attention research? What could I draw from that might help alleviate some of that? But more important than that to me was the individual. And so, you know, when I wrote my first book, attention and focus meant one thing. As I progressed through each of the books up to book 7, I started to realize that attention is really related to it all. It's not just about the workplace, but it's about us. It's about our happiness. You know, even if you meditate, you have to pay attention to something or intentionally blank it out, but you're still using your attention mechanism to do that. You're regulating that. Attention is just related to everything, identifying your dreams, identifying windows to make your dreams happen. You know, attention is really the power behind karma. Attention is the power behind the law of attraction, which is so popular with people. You have to pay attention. It's what makes it work. It's maybe the biological connection that makes all these other things work. And so that individual became very important to me, because in my research, I found out that at least 82% of people are unhappy with what they're doing at work. 80 some odd percent of people, higher than that, feel that their best talents are not being recognized at work or even actualized at work. And so there's an element of happiness and fulfillment and satisfaction. And I wanted to address that even more than the workplace error, because that comes down to the individual, you know.
Right.
And I guess the bottom line for me is, if you want to change your life in any way whatsoever, you have to change the way you're paying attention.
Okay, that sounds like
Unless it happens haphazardly, which is possible.
right. It sounds like an important addition to your work. So I'm sure that'll be a great book for folks to hear about. So obviously you've done a lot in your life. You've met tens of thousands of people. You've written books and articles for various prestigious publications. You won the SUNY Chancellor's Award for Scholarly Research and Creative Activity in 2011. So you've done so much, and I'm wondering, out of all these things that you've done and achieved, what's the one thing that you hold on to that makes you the most proud?
Well, first, my family. I have to say that. But, you know, I thought about this, and, you know, I've tried to get over this idea about being proud. Really, I really have tried to get over this, you know. And, you know, yeah, you still have to work on it every now and then. But I have to say that, you know, really, I love to converse. And so I think that the conversations that I've had with people over the years, the many conversations that I've had where we talk about where we think or what we think this is all about, you know, these kind of conversations, I love them. And every once in a while, we thought we had something, you know, and maybe we did, maybe we didn't. But when we did, we tried to contribute it to the rest of the discussion. So I just, you know, I think that the thing I'm happiest about is talking with people about things that are important to us.
You do seem like a good conversationalist.
Thank you.
So if you've enjoyed this talk with Dr. Cardillo as much as I have, make sure to register for the upcoming program on September 19th. He's going to be discussing his newest book, The 12 Rules of Attention, and the talk starts at 11 a.m. Just go to our online calendars and event page to register, and Dr. Cardillo and I will see you then.
See you then.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.